So thank you for the feedback from the previous session. And yes, let's play with a few things. Now, by play with, you know that I mean it helps to take a lighthearted attitude towards this stuff and sort through. For instance, brainstorming doesn't work if every idea counts. You just need to put it out. So speaking about guilt and lovingness and withholding, in a situation where, particularly in standard situations in Western society, especially, well, not especially, there's usually a partner with financial power and a partner without financial power when there are children involved. Yes,
yes, totally.
And to some extent, we tend to fall into cliches. That's why they're cliches. So one person is thinking about the family in the long term, and the other person may not be. And to challenge means that you risk someone saying, no, I don't want to. When you challenge someone, there's always the risk that they will say, I don't want to play anymore.
Yes. I recognize that in myself. Yeah, I definitely was, if I was really in agreement and not a problem, then he couldn't possibly reject what I wanted and the long-term marriage. Absolutely. He'd stay if I was a good girl.
Well, it's a little bit more than good girl. There's literal power here. Mm. So there's the power to withhold. Mm. And there's always a fear that someone will leave.
Yes. Powerfully in my side, in my way, yeah. Yeah.
So when you say I feel guilt for not critiquing my ex-husband,
standing up to him, and bringing a balance. I didn't pull my weight.
Well, I'm looking at reality, and the reality is your ex-husband.
Yes.
Okay. So at some point, this person, you may have sensed that this person was not committed.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah.
If you sense that someone's not committed and you stand up to them, that could be the point of rupture.
Yeah, there is that, but it's a little bit more complicated than that as well, because I so wanted it to work.
I understand that you wanted it to work, and I understand that there might have been some submission on your part.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about an element that you can't control.
The other.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And what I'm suggesting is that what you expressed was that you feel guilt about this, but there is some reality about what you can and cannot do in a relationship.
Yeah, it's not just guilt about within that relationship, but actually it revealed that I've had a certain amount of guilt for withdrawing an admiration from my mother, because my mother was in a similar situation to me, but she had the courage to leave, and I actually spent most of my life angry with my mum. And I've dealt with that, and we've really got a great friendship. In the last couple of years, I like to say I've fallen in love with my mum. Mm. It's been fantastic. But then today I got this rising sense that I just never really acknowledged her with how courageous she was with her choices, and they were very tough choices.
What if that's one of the gifts from this relationship?
Yes. Yeah, I'm more and more and more seeing that whatever is there in my life, whatever is happening in my life is everything, no matter good, bad, or however I would like to call it. It's actually for me to develop.
Okay.
And I'm really starting to live that now. So when I'm feeling a mood, I think, what is this? What have I got to look for here? I don't just ignore it or indulge in it. And I do get that is a gift. The relationships, the very fact that I've started on this path is a gift of this marriage as well, because if it had not ended, we wouldn't be talking now.
So let me talk about Pathwork Lecture 180, which is the spiritual meaning of relationship. And what it says is that the purpose of relationship is to learn and grow.
Yes.
And you got that from this relationship.
Yes. I acknowledge that. Yeah, absolutely, I get that.
That in this particular relationship, you were able to see something that you were not clearly able to see in other situations in your life.
Yes.
So in other words, a relationship with a wife or a husband can teach you something about your parent or parents, which teaches you something about yourself.
Yes.
Okay. What if that's the gift here?
The gift, yeah, that present hidden away, which I didn't realise I had.
Mm-hmm.
I'll play with that. I'll play with it.
Okay.
It was a lovely thing. It was a lovely thing today to realise, actually, really deep down, without any doubt, how courageous my mum was, and that admiration is a form of love that I've got for her, and I hadn't been expressing it.
Okay. Now, if we move up one more layer, or down one more layer, or sideways one more layer, I don't know which way we're moving. All right. Parents are a substitute for God. Consider for a moment that there may be part of you that protests about, for instance, how and why the world is constructed, how things happen, a place where you, as a spiritual child, do not understand why things happen the way they do.
Yeah, I've really been in that place in the last couple of months a lot. I just look at stuff and I think, I just don't get this. Why? Why is it like this?
Right. So as you move up to a position where you can see your mother more clearly, can you move up one more space and see that the world may have more order, more logic, more reasons for why it does things than you realize?
I know the theory of it. You know, everyone writes their own script. We create what we're living, and our thoughts create this substance. I understand the theory of it, the actual knowing of it inside. I'm when I look at a homeless person, and I find it really hard to understand in such a wealthy society why we let this happen. I just, so the bigger picture, I can look at it, but then I get sucked back into this person is actually here and they've got nothing. And how's that happen?
I'm talking about society.
No.
I'm talking about universal spirit and the plan we're all working within. I'm talking about what the homeless man may be learning and what we are learning in our interaction with him.
Yeah, I bounce between the two of those. I know that he's doing he's learning, and when I'm interacting, it might be actually he's the teacher and I'm the pupil. But then I get sucked back into the very reality in the material world. This man has not got enough flesh on his bones, and he's got nowhere to have a shower and have all the things I have. This has just hit me recently, and I sort of look at, and it's a great lesson in gratitude, which has led me to this underlying greed that I have for not being satisfied and wanting this security. It's all, I know, I can feel it's all interlinked. I just can't find it. I do apologise for that.
Last time, one of the others, it was my phone. It's all right.
Yeah, so it's there, but it hasn't come through. I do apologise. Okay.
Just breathe for a moment. Let the interruption have happened. Just let it happen. And what interruptions can do, they irritate us, they embarrass us, they send our mind in a fluffy kind of a way. But
Yeah.
there's something else. They don't let us continue on the point that we were trying to make.
Right. Here it goes.
Mm-hmm. Allow the interruption to let you look around and use your peripheral vision.
Okay.
We got distracted. How does that help?
It brings me back from thoughts, actually. Mind creating sort of stories. It was like it's like a something I repeat in a default conversation. Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about. We can go into the distraction and judge them and feel guilty. We can do all that. But if we just say, what happened?
The universe wanted me to stop what I was doing and said, halt, wait.
There you go.
Where are you? Yeah.
And the nice person on the other end of the phone has their own story for what happened. She didn't pick up her phone and this was really important. They've got their own story.
Yeah.
That's okay. Everybody can have their own story from a single event.
Yeah.
Now, in my mind, what I want to do is I want to make an analogy to greed.
Mm.
And say everybody gets a bite. Everybody gets to share. And there's enough for everyone.
Where does that fear of lack come from? Where is that from?
Well, that's what I was probing very gently to see what would happen if I said something. And imagine it's like it's a thing, and you probe here and probe here, probe here, and then you probe someplace, and there's a tension. And you go, ooh, isn't that interesting?
Mm.
So ultimately, greed is a lack of faith, or I love to use duality in a spiritual way. It can be a lack of faith, or it can be faith that something you don't want to happen is going to happen. Have a backwards faith. So let's say that you amassed things, and we're not talking about your reality, we're talking about feelings. Let's say that you amassed things, and there was something wrong about how you did it. In the back of your mind, you might feel that somebody someday is going to make you give them back.
And we're talking about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something wrong in the way.
In other words, think of it think of
yeah.
it humorously. Think of it like a nut storing. It's like a squirrel storing nuts. Okay. We don't know how much we need, so we grab things. But we're not squirrels. So we wonder sometimes, did we take too much? Did we store too much? Is the fact that my larder, my pantry is full, and then I see a homeless man, are those two things connected? That's what we do as human beings.
Yes, I do connect the two. And I do have a yearning for a time when there won't be a homeless man and the inequalities are ironed out.
Mm-hmm.
I do have that yearning. Mm.
But it is very hard to give everything away and believe that the universe will take care of us.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's a key thing I keep asking from God is that trust to trust Him.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know this sounds complex, but what if God wants you to keep what you've got? Because you have a task to do, and you need those things to do it with. But of course, you don't know what your task is.
No, I don't. But that resonates. That feels true.
Mm-hmm. So it can look greedy to have things when you don't realize their purpose.
there's a purpose in them, even in just looking at my circumstance against somebody else's circumstance. There's a purpose, and to see what is it, how do I react to that. I had this because in the Bible there's a man that Jesus eventually heals, but he walked past that man and must have walked past that man hundreds of times, because he was always on the steps or just outside the gates of the synagogue. So he didn't heal him the first time he saw him. He healed him when he had a purpose to heal him. And it's like this particular young man that's touched my heart with his circumstance has really made me look at myself and how I react to people.
Just breathe that in.
I feel guilty that I've got so much and others don't.
But breathe that in. Any snapshot is unfair. You're describing a snapshot of yourself in life. Not who you're going to be, and not who you've been.
It could all change so quickly, couldn't it? It's just what is at the moment is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fear of, what if I end up like that as well?
Mm-hmm.
And the real fear was that person has nothing, that no one, not that he has nothing, that he has no one. Yes.
Keep breathing. Keep breathing.
I'm breathing. It's the fear of being alone. Mm-hmm. Really powerful. Powerfully there. And yet there's a weird sense that is just an illusion, because it also feels like it's a ridiculous notion.
It is a ridiculous notion, because on some level, that homeless man has you. Your thoughts are with him. Your heart goes out to him.
Can I ask you a question? Because I do feel that, but is that for him, or is that because of the fear in me?
Why can't it be a mixture?
I feel that it is a mixture.
Okay. Let it be a mixture.
Yeah.
Let it be imperfect.
Mm.
Let it be the best you can do in the moment. But I heard your words. So it's not all bad. It's not all selfishness. It's not all fear. Your heart goes out to someone in need, and naturally it reflects back.
Yeah, I think this is one where I can just accept that what I see is somebody in need, and I had thoughts of compassion for that person. And I did what I could at the time, but my thoughts are still there around that subject, the subject of people who are alone.
There's a place where we all think we're supposed to be saints. We all think we're supposed to be Mother Teresa. I saw a documentary on Mother Teresa. She says this is hard to do. She didn't do it because it was easy. She did it because she was called to do it.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a sense among people that everybody should be called to do that work. But we're not. So I empathize here because I wonder if I should be doing other things with my life. You know, the old children are starving in China. There are needs in Africa. There are needs in the Indian continent. There are needs in war zones. Why am I not working in a war zone? I'm not called to do that.
No.
What are you called to do?
What am I called to do? I'm called to be solid for my family, really, and my family looks like God makes it. He brings strangers to me, and I end up giving them a home or whatever it happens to be. But that's where I am. I'm called to do that. I'm called to answer to that request.
What if that's what you're supposed to do?
I feel like I really feel like I'm supposed to do this work. That's where I'm really drawn back again and again. I sort of pause. I stop reading lectures, and then I find myself being drawn back and again and searching, just constant searching to be as truthful with myself as I can be.
Okay. Here's where I'm going with this. It takes an enormous amount of support to do spiritual work. I know that there are stories of the saints who did it in poverty, and they were destitute, and they went out and they lived as hermits. And I know all the stories. But the truth is that to be quiet and focused and centered and look at your life and try to sort through the subtleties, to try to find greed and fear, takes the ability to focus and concentrate. When there are bombs raining down, when there are shells whizzing through the air, when your children are crying from hunger, it is very difficult to do certain kinds of spiritual work.
Yeah, I agree.
It is a privilege and a luxury to be fed and housed and warm or cool and comfortable, and to then do work that is uncomfortable.
I've never looked at it like that. I've so much of the time I've actually thought of myself as focusing too much of my time on my spiritual work, and in some ways thought of it as I've thought of it as only being able to do it because I have the luxury and the comfort. And so I've, instead of seeing it as then being able to do an uncomfortable work, I've seen it as being indulgent, that I've been looking at myself and who I've been being.
There may have been a stage of that. I don't know anyone who struggles and then has some room for comfort who doesn't do the equivalent of buying ice cream with that extra money.
Mm.
There's a human quality to struggling and then having a bash, having a bit of a blowout.
Yeah.
And then, see, those are only snapshots.
And then it starts to become part of your life in the way you respond to people, the way you are with people. People notice the change, and it's like, I think I've heard you use the term, it's like I am modeling. I'm different, and so people model what I do. Once the growth has happened in me, it doesn't go back. It changes, and it may go deeper. And I think sometimes I'm visiting the same space again. I thought I'd dealt with this, but when it reveals itself, I've gone deeper, or I had to reveal something I'd missed before. But it never goes away. It's how I live my life now. I live my life and I see other people, I see nature. I was very blinkered before. There's definitely been a growth which is permanent.
So allow that in an imperfect format.
Yeah. You've used imperfect, and do you think I'm a person, or have you observed in me a need for perfection to get things right?
Whenever we are dualistic in our attitudes, there's a quality of, there's a concept that we could be perfect and we're not.
I see. I've read that.
Okay. So you're looking for the perfect mix of being generous with your resources. And the perfect mix would make you feel comfortable in having them and comfortable in dispensing them or sharing them. And what Pathwork teaches is there is a perfection, but it's instead of being a static snapshot reality, it's a dynamic balance. Perfection is something we reach. I think of it like like a teeter-totter. Okay, so we're level and then we go down. There's a level and we go up. Okay. This is dynamic balance. And that means that perfection will only happen in moments. But if we try to attain this, it's very hard to attain.
A lot of energy taken.
Well, life doesn't do that. Life does not exist in stasis.
Mm.
Even in the sessions that I do, whatever I'm trying to do, I'll overdo or underdo. What I recognize, I'll over-recognize or under-recognize. Can you feel that in yourself?
Yes, I do feel that in myself. I will either over-exaggerate or under-judge. I do it with time. I need all this amount of time, and it takes a quarter of it. Or I am often late because I think I can do 10 times as much as I... That's how it happens in time for me. But yes, it is a quality that I have.
All right. When you do that with time, isn't there some sense of the right time? Not that you achieve that, but don't you have a sense of it?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Well, when you say I can do all these things in this time, isn't there a concept of I ought to be able to accomplish much more with the time I have?
When I do that, it's actually because when I go and do whatever it is I want to go and do, I don't want that stuff. I want closure on it. I want that finished and done with.
Okay. When you reach out for something and you want it finished and done with, do you usually succeed in that?
Yes, usually. But there is often stuff that I'm going to be doing is pushed slightly. I'm 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late.
So accomplishing something thoroughly pushes something else out of the way.
Yes.
It's an imperfect world is what I'm getting at. You're never going to get everything perfectly right. You're never going to manage your time perfectly. Imagine for a moment, surely you've seen homes where everything is in its perfect place.
Yes, and I find them very confronting because mine never looks like that.
To some degree, a house like that isn't an interactive residence. It's a showplace. I love science fiction, and it used to be in science fiction, everything was perfect. And you'd show somebody walking into a home of the future, and everything was clean and everything was put away. And I thought, where are the magazines? Where are the toys? Where are the things that we are in a home to do? Because it was artificial. It was a construct of a home. It wasn't a real home. A real home is messy. A real person is messy. A real life is messy.
Yep, it is.
Okay, so we have a concept of if I had all my life cleaned up and if I was a really good person and if I had lots of discipline, I did everything right, my home would look like a showcase. Who would want to live there?
Where does that thinking come from? Because it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it come from? It's like priorities for, they seem upside down. Let's spend all our time and effort making this look perfect and tidy when we should be rolling around on the floor giggling.
Okay, so for just a moment, see if you can feel two parts of you. Feel the heart and the head. Okay. The head is very clean and neat. It has no biscuit crumbs, no curdled milk, no upside down toy chests. It's like your cutlery drawer. It has knives and forks and spoons and they're metallic and they don't intermingle with each other. And then there's the heart. And the heart is like a great big swamp. It's moist and tender and it has things underneath and things sticking out and there's no differentiating in the heart. The heart is like soup.
The heart's like anything is acceptable to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when the head comes up with a construct, it doesn't include the reality of the heart.
The head has made a model,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's not that way,
It's wrong.
it's wrong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that goes back to the beginning of the conversation, which is that the head has made the construct that the young man has nobody, has no home, and so it must be wrong.
Mm-hmm. And there is a wrongness to it. The head's not incorrect in its model. It's just, it's not complete. I knew a person who decided to give up everything. And it was a traumatic, what they did was traumatic to them and the people who loved them. I wasn't supposed to follow that. But I'm still there for that person. I still love them. I still support what they're trying to do. I help where I can. They're on a spiritual path. I don't understand it. It's not my path. What I'm inviting here is to see a bigger picture. We're all doing our work. And there may be a place where you're called to do more for others. That may be true. But that would be something that would grow organically, not as not to eliminate any feelings of guilt. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
Instead of doing something to erase your discomfort at what you see and feel, you do it because it's right. You do it because you have decided to use your resources in a certain way. To include other needs than your own.
I really get a sense that when I choose to do it, it won't feel anything but right. It will feel that it's what I choose to do, not because it's like forcing it to. I really get that. It feels easy.
It is easy when it's right, when it's organic, when you have built up what you need to do it. You see, what the mind says is, that person is hungry, do something now. But it's really saying, I don't like it. It doesn't fit my construct. Erase it. Erase it now. Make it go away. The mind is not as robotic as one might think. The mind is organic. It doesn't like exceptions. It doesn't like things that don't fit its construct. The mind becomes uncomfortable. So, whereas the heart needs to focus on love, the mind needs to become wise, which is not the same as smart.
Can you give me an example what you mean there?
Wise?
Yes.
Wise. When they say a child is wise, what do they mean? They see beyond themselves. It is hard for a child to be wise because that is an almost spiritual state of being. But by the time someone is 50, 60, 70 years old, it's very realistic for them to be wise. They have seen and experienced many things beyond themselves. And they may be able to hold that construct. It's hard to do this without getting very heady and intellectual. The lectures teach of the unitive of us. When I think, if I think only of me, I am not wise. But when I think of you and me and others, and I attempt to balance, my actions, my life, my resources, so that I can be of service and not forget myself because I'm part of this construct. That's what we mean by a wise person. A wise person who throws away all their resources is not considered wise unless they have a lot more, wisdom. And then we see that the things don't matter. So it can be wise to get rid of possessions, but it can also be foolish. Depends on what you do about it. Depends on what the effect has on your life. It's not the doing, it's not the being that does it. It's what you make out of it. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I really saw that, particularly when you were talking about what they choose to do with their possessions. If they no longer need them, then they let them go. But if there is a need, and I'm not talking about necessarily a physical need, but an inner need still to have them, then just to force them away would not benefit at all. It would just be like a loss then. Yeah.
So wisdom is something that we earn, but we have to also create it. You can earn it and create it. It's a synergy. It's a really miraculous presence, but also a loving heart. It's just as much energy and work.
Mm.
And if we go back to the triad that Pathwork very often talks about, we've been talking about reason and emotion, feelings, love, and then there's the element of will. And I remember I was talking to a group and we talking about will, and one person got very upset and said, force is bad. But force is what causes us to stand up. Force is what causes us to speak. Aggression is needed to get up and feed yourself. Like everything else, it has wonderful qualities and destructive qualities. So does the mind, and so does the heart. And the hope is that, like a three-legged stool, a balance can be found. And the gain is for the mind to do what it does best, and the heart to do what it does best, and the will to do what it does best. Instead of one of the three saying, I can do everything.
Which is usually the mind, for me.
It depends on the person, but yes, it may be.
That's really coming into a real understanding inside. I really see that. The heart being in a situation, the mind looking at the situation and seeing what the situation is, and the will choosing to be or not be in the situation, to change it or to not change it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they work together, then whatever will happen will be a balanced outcome.
Mm-hmm. But there's also a balance in letting the head, when you say you like horses, giving it its ability to run. Why not let the mind run for a while, if that's appropriate?
As long as it's not headlong into the bushes.
Mm-hmm. Or even if it is sometimes. If it causes no harm, why not?
Yeah.
You see, that's just it. Life isn't meant to be all business. Where's the fun?
Absolutely. It's not meant to be all business, is it? And I live my life as if my life is all business. Everything is work, but everything I can see that everything I can do has the potential of just being fun, no matter what it is. Yeah.
And that's what happens when someone gets in their groove, finds their own path. It looks easy because it's relatively easy for the 50 years it took us to get there. But when you're enjoying yourself, when you love what you're doing, when you feel that you're in the right place doing the right thing, the work and maintenance it takes to continue to remain there doesn't feel like work and maintenance. There's a joy to it. It's easy because we have chosen to be there and because it gives us joy. We don't count the work anymore. When people ask me how I do things, I tease and say that's why I'm so good at this. I do this all day long, every day, 24/7. I do, but I don't think of it as an exercise someone forces me to do. For me, this is just life, to get a larger perspective, to stop and say, what's going on? Why is there confusion here? To sense guilt and say, what's that about? And take it apart. And I don't do it perfectly. It's enough that I do as best I can in the moment.
I have a question on this work issue. I told you earlier I went riding this morning. It's a wonderful opportunity. A friend lends me her horse. It's weekly, every week, and it is the biggest joy of my life. And yet, I am not reluctant to do it. That's wrong. I'm less than enthusiastic to do it. And I don't understand why, because once I'm there, once I get there, it feels great. And it's just the place I want to be.
So what's the reluctance about?
Because
Do you feel selfish to have this particular joy?
yeah, I do. And I know that's right because I'm tearing up. Yeah, I'm really moved by that insight into me.
So think of it this way. By exercising your joy, what is the rest of your day like? Do you give back to others?
Yeah, I feel I must do. I must smile at everybody. I see people. We walk past the streets and we just walk past people, but I see people after I've exercised my joy.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't just exercise your joy, you got yourself ready to be joyful with others.
That's the consequence, but why the self feeling selfish?
Well, to some extent, we're always beating ourselves up because we're not sure that we deserve it. And we're not sure that, well, maybe I only deserve 45 minutes and I took an hour and 15. It's always looking for that perfection. I must only give myself a tablespoon and a half of joy. If I give myself 3 tablespoons of joy, I'm a glutton. And if I only give myself 2 teaspoons, I'm bitter.
That's very powerful.
So what I'm speaking of here is you're never going to get the recipe right. Okay? It's as if you're trying to eat based on calorie content. If the cake slice is 200 calories, what if you're off an eighth of an inch in the slicing of it? 200 more or less. It's a guideline. You go out to ride and you get a great deal out of it. And for the rest of the day, your heart is happy. And you're able to see things in different ways, and you're able to be with other people in an open-hearted way. So you have to zig to zag. Other people don't have to go out and ride in the morning to do that, but that's them. Some people never figure out how to be open-hearted. That's them. One morning you'll wake up and you won't have time to ride. And what you might find is if you spend 5 minutes virtualizing your ride, remembering the feelings, the joy, the sensations, then you can let it go and move on with your day. Is that greedy?
No, it's not greedy. It's actually nurturing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Nurturing.
Mm-hmm. So once again, if you talk about a larger perspective, a larger umbrella, you want to include others under this umbrella, but each individual is the one holding a particular umbrella. And you're supposed to be under that umbrella. You may be the first one for a long, you may be the only one for a long time.
But it's never really occurred to me this way. That what you're saying is that my heart is, after I've given myself that time and space to ride, my heart is full of joy. And it's almost like I'm so full, I have to give. I am so happy, I'm so elated that I cannot not be happy and elated with the next person I meet.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I'm overflowing.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm suggesting is this. I take it you don't ride every day. You say once a week?
Yes, once a week. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
See if you can make it a practice every morning to give yourself a lovely memory of one of your rides, a 5-minute ride. You can give yourself 20 minutes. I don't care. I'm saying that 5 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
And notice what happens to the rest of your day. But you need to give yourself that 5 minutes. You need to really go in there and allow yourself to feel and think and enjoy. And in that way, you may never write again, and you can still call it to you whenever you want. And the real experience is, of course, joyful. What I think I'm talking about is that we can take a certain joy and we can internalize it so that it is infinite and forever.
Okay.
And that's more important than the thing itself. But it doesn't make the thing itself unimportant. And you can carry that with you throughout the day. You can stop in the middle of the day when you're having a really bad day and do a 5-minute ride. And see if that will pop you out of your bad mood.
Well, that's definitely going to be part of my discipline. Have a go at that every day.
Mm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.